Welcome to the Vegas Insider channel here on YouTube. Kevin Rogers with you as the Daily Insider is underway here on this Tuesday, May 25th. And we got a lot to go over from yesterday and look ahead to today. A couple NBA games from last night, both double-digit results. And we'll get to those. And obviously, well, all these games are important in the NBA, but we'll preview tonight's action coming up in just a moment. First, I want to tell you about our Daily Insider contest, and it's very simple. If you have played this, you know this already, but if you're new, basically, you can win a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper if you pick a winner for tonight. Simple as that. You're in the drawing. Now, don't forget that. Because you pick the winner doesn't mean you win automatically. You're just in the drawing to win the prize. Now, here's how you got to do it. You have to leave your Vegas Insider user ID in the comments section below this video. You leave a winner for tonight, whether it is NBA, baseball, hockey, doesn't matter. It can be a first half play. It can be a player prop. It could be a first quarter. It could be a first 5 innings in baseball. It doesn't matter. You have the choice. But it cannot be a live bet. It's got to be before the game. So you leave your Vegas Insider user ID and also your best bet for tonight. Now, if you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, it's okay because all you got to do is go to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner. Free membership. Register now. Simple as that. Create your user ID. Create your password. Email address so we get in touch with you. First name, last name, phone number. Free. It's all free. You don't have to pay anything for it. And then you'll be in, and then leave your message, leave your best bet. Also, you leave a message if you want to. So that's that. All right. Now, and you win a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper on VegasInsider.com if you are the winner. Okay, let's look back. Let's begin with the NBA. And last night, I mean, you had a real dud in that Bucks Heat game. Milwaukee blew out Miami 132-98. And in that game last night, for as bad as Milwaukee was from three-point range in game one, last night they were much better. They were 22 of 53. Now, put this in perspective for a second. 22 of 53, 42%. Excellent. That includes the 1 of 7 from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Why in the world is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is unstoppable at the basket, two-time MVP, shooting threes? Giannis should never attempt a three. Seriously. You have Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Bryn Forbes hit 6 threes, Connaughton hit 5 threes last night. You have all these other shooters on this team. Why is Giannis all of a sudden thinks he's Larry Bird? Why is he shooting threes? So, Giannis at 31, he was great last night, but stopped shooting the threes. And the Bucks get 22 from Bryn Forbes off the bench. I mean, when these other guys are hitting, when Bryn Forbes and Pat Connaughton are combining for 11 threes, no one's beating that team. Simple as that. And the Bucks dropped 46 in the first quarter. They were up comfortably at the half. That game barely went over the total. It was on a great pace. And in the fourth quarter, you had 45 points, and they had all the backups in at the end. It got a little dicey there for a bit. They went over the total with maybe like 2 minutes to go, two and a half minutes to go, but it got a little dicey there. So for the Heat right now, they are in major trouble. I understand that, well, the series hasn't started yet because Milwaukee won both games at home. I don't care. Like, you can't convince me, and I've said this, I don't know if I've said this on the live stream, but I'll say it now, and I felt this way for a year, that if the Heat played the Bucks outside of the bubble last year in the playoffs, Miami's not winning that series. The Heat were very fortunate to not have to go to Milwaukee for any games, and it seemed like the Bucks, after the pandemic hit, I think it hit the Bucks the hardest because they were cruising along last year, and then they lost all the momentum. They're off for a few months. They go to the bubble. It just didn't work out. And we see the Heat are a little fraudulent. They're a good team, but you talk about Eastern Conference champions. You're telling me that this year, with this draw, they would beat Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia in 3 straight rounds before even playing the Western champion? Absolutely not. Jimmy Butler was 4 of 10. They were 8 of 28 from 3. They missed 11 free throws. I'm not there with the Heat. And Milwaukee, they covered the 5. I think a lot of people want to jump on Miami last night because after they had the close loss in overtime in Game 1. But no, they just were terrible last night. Now, in the second game, Portland and Denver, that one had a very interesting second quarter. As you see that 42-36, 78 points. Damian Lillard had a huge first half. Not a great second half, though. And Denver bounced back from the Game 1 loss to Portland. Now, I did like Portland in Game 1. I had that in our best bet video, if you check that out on YouTube. I mean, it was taped before Saturday, so it was legit. But Portland ended up beating Denver in Game 1. I thought that line told you a lot. And the Nuggets, now you see, I mean, look, Nikola Jokic is going to win the MVP. They have Michael Porter Jr., who's an excellent young player. He's turning into the player everyone thought he would be coming out of the University of Missouri. But without Jamal Murray, it's a major hit. But though Denver came back and, look, they won by 19 last night. So Jokic outdueled Lillard, and now the Nuggets go to Portland tied at 1. So it's a new series, no big deal for them. But Damian Lillard had that huge second quarter and the huge first half. He ended with 42 points, but it really didn't translate into the second half. And, hey, you knew you'd get the Carmelo Anthony game in this series against his former team. Carmelo had 18 in Game 1. He had 5 in Game 2. So that's not totally shocking that Carmelo kind of went a little backwards there in Game 2. But that series tied at 1. So now we have a few more Game 2s tonight. Boston and Brooklyn. We'll start with them. Now, the Celtics were up by 12 early on the Nets on Saturday night. And I did like the Celtics Saturday. Unfortunately, if Jason Tatum isn't totally blowing up, they got a lot of problems, especially against a team like Brooklyn, who has 3 future Hall of Famers in Kyrie Irving and James Harden and Kevin Durant. And they ran the Celtics in the second half. Boston kind of had a chance for a backdoor at the end, but they couldn't get it. It's hard to get a backdoor when you're getting 8.5. You're down 11, 13, 15 points. It's just you can't hope for that. But I dug up an interesting nugget on this game tonight. In Brad Stevens' career as the head coach of the Celtics, this is going back to 14-15, or at least since he's been in the playoffs, because he didn't make the playoffs his first year. So since the Celtics kind of became a constant playoff team in the Eastern Conference, Brad Stevens is 0-5 in Game 2s of a playoff series after losing the opener. So when Boston falls down 1-0 in a series, history has told us, and I know different teams, different players, I get it. History has told us they don't win Game 2. And they are 1-4 against the spread in that span. The only cover came that first year against Cleveland, against LeBron and the Cavs, as 11-point dogs. Now they're getting 9.5 tonight. I really believe if you're thinking about Boston, which is fine, I mean, you can always make an argument for everyone in these games. Doesn't mean we agree with it. It just means that if you have a strong argument, okay. But if you like Boston, I don't think you think they're going to win. I think you think they're going to cover. And for Brooklyn, as long as they don't get off to a slow start, the Nets should run them again. There's just not enough firepower past Jason Tatum, who had 22 in Game 1. And Jaylen Brown is out. Kemba's too inconsistent. It's just too much to ask to go against a team like that, to go against Brooklyn, who can win the championship. Boston's just not there. And the total on this game is 227.5, 228-ish. This total dropped after Game 1. It was 233, and it was what, 104.93 was the final of Game 1. So they dropped the odds. I mean, I could see an over in this game. I would lean towards Brooklyn just because of what, the history with the Celtics in the playoffs after losing game one under Brad Stevens. They just don't play well in game two. And, a lot of those games are probably outmatched, which is the case here. Game two tonight. Well, actually, I say game two. I mean, there's two late games. There's two late contests tonight in the NBA. But you have Lakers-Suns at 10:05 out in Phoenix. And now you wonder if the desperation comes in with LA, that Phoenix won the opener 99-90. Both teams didn't shoot well on Sunday. Anthony Davis, who had that monster game against the Suns towards the end of the season when LeBron was out at Staples Center, 42, 44 points. They beat the Suns as 6.5-point underdogs. He had, 14 in game one. He didn't shoot the ball well. Phoenix closes a favorite in that game, and LA was the favorite of the series going in. Now the Lakers are flipped to a favorite. I don't love the side in this game. I really don't, because, look, you can make the argument for LA in this game that, all right, they're going to come back. Chris Paul's not 100% for Phoenix. But the Suns still have been a good home underdog this year. They beat Utah at home. They beat Milwaukee at home in this situation. And they still had a better regular season. No matter what you say about the Lakers, the Suns still had a better season than the Lakers did. And yeah, if LeBron and AD are healthy, we don't know. We don't know what could have happened. But this is the state of LA right now. I do like the over in the game. I do think that these teams, this is the lowest total the Suns have seen all season long. And yeah, you had 189 in game one, and the odds makers dropped it a few points. I could see this being a little more high scoring, which is not crazy. That if the Suns beat the Lakers tonight or vice versa, 107, 105, you're going over, which is not a high-scoring game in the NBA anymore. But I could see where this one maybe goes back over, and I think the side is too difficult to back in this one, because you don't normally see a line flip like that, even with Chris Paul not at 100%, that I can't think, unless Chris Paul is out, why the Suns are laying 2.5, then the Lakers are laying 2, just because you think they're going to come back and win due to dropping the first game. If the Lakers won game one, I don't know. It's a tough one, because the Suns had a better regular season record than the Lakers. We still know the Lakers are the champs. But then why weren't the Lakers laying points in game one? That's why I liked Phoenix. I just wondered, why was that? Everyone knows the Lakers, are better because they have LeBron and AD. It's be entertaining, but very tough game I don't feel as good about that game as I did on Sunday with the Suns. I don't feel as good about it. Dallas and the Clippers, game 3 tonight. That's an NBA TV game, and boy, oh boy, the Clippers can't afford to. Not they can't afford to go down 2-0, because I think the Clippers could be down 2-0 and still win this series. So I'm not saying that, but the LA Clippers, though, they boy, the one thing I'll say about the LA Clippers, if they have an early exit this year, Kawhi's got to be gone, right? He's got to be gone out of LA. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how if you're the LA Clippers, and again, the Lakers lost in game one to the Blazers last year. They lost in the second round to Houston in game one, and they still won the championship. So I'm not jumping off the deep end with the Clippers losing game one to Dallas. Dallas is still a pretty good team. They have one of the top 10 players in the league in Luka. They're still a really good team. Let's not make this out to be even Utah losing to Memphis, where Memphis is a nice young team, but Utah can't be now 1-0 to them. And I know Donovan Mitchell didn't play, but anyway, we'll talk more about that game tomorrow. But looking at this game tonight, it stayed under. It was on an over pace, and then it slowed down in the second half. So I don't know if you want to go back that way again. The total really didn't change as much going from game one to game two as opposed to the first 2 games of the night. I got to believe LA bounces back here. I really do. Simple as that they just come back, but they are 1-3 against Dallas this year. Granted, the first game, that 50-point blowout, Kawhi didn't play back in December, but Dallas has confidence against them. You know, they lost to Mavs lost to the Clippers last year in the playoffs in the bubble. Luka hit that crazy three at the end in overtime of one of those games, but you know LA still won the series. But Dallas has confidence. They have a really good coach in Rick Carlisle, who's been around a long time, and Dallas is playing with house money at this point. They really are, because all the pressure's on the Clippers. I just don't know. I mean, I want to believe the Clippers come back tonight. I cannot just say, oh, Dallas is winning this game. I just can't do it. I mean, if you said, okay, who do you like gun to head? I say the Clippers, but, man, they are here's the thing. The Lakers can lose to Phoenix, and you have all the built-in excuses. The Clippers have no excuses. They have none. And like I said, they could be down 2-0 to Dallas and still win that series. So I'm not saying that they're done if they lose tonight. But if they lose the series, it's a different conversation. But right now, they could lose. They could be down 2-0 and win 2 in Dallas. That, I believe, could definitely happen. But definitely not off to a good start. But also, it's like the Portland-Denver series. That Denver loses game 1 at home. All of a sudden, now you're 1-1 going to Portland. That's like, what's the difference? If the Clippers won game 1, then lost game 2, you're going to Dallas now 1-1. But if you lost game 1 and win game 2, you're still 1. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Does it? You know, does Denver have more momentum than Portland? No, but Denver feels like they're back in the series. I don't know. All right, let's go to Major League Baseball now. And, oh, man. Let's look back. We can look back at last night before we get to tonight. I know we normally just look at, we kind of mold together Monday and Tuesday. We can do Monday since there weren't a lot of games. Let's start with the, let's move up one side. Let's skip to one. There we go. There we go. So the Marlins beat the Phillies 9-6. And Philadelphia, you know what? I still find it hilarious that, and look, I'm not in Philadelphia, so I don't know all the intricacies of it, but just looking from the outside, that Gabe Kapler took a lot of crap there in Philadelphia. They got rid of him. They brought in Joe Girardi. Kapler goes to San Francisco. They're like, why did they hire this guy? The Giants have an older roster, a mix of older and younger guys, but they don't have the stars they used to have. As far they don't have Madison Bumgarner anymore. I mean, Tim Lincecum's way gone, but the Giants are much better than the Phillies right now. And Philadelphia has one of the highest paid players in baseball in Bryce Harper. I mean, I don't know who the highest paid is anymore because all these guys get massive contracts. But Bryce Harper's, a top 3 paid player in baseball, and they can't do anything. They lose to the Marlins 9-6. Trevor Rogers continues to have a really good season for Miami. And the Marlins have a better record than the Phillies right now. And the Marlins win that one, easily goes over 15 runs. The Rockies win a rare road game, 3-2 against the Mets at Citi Field, and New York is all beat up. They're totally decimated right now. But I've talked about this guy a lot in the live stream, Austin Gomber. He's had some ups and downs, but he's actually been a nice addition to that the Colorado rotation. He came from the Cardinals. He's been a really good addition to that Colorado rotation. And even though the Rockies are awful on the road, he still has been a pretty good option when he takes the mound. Look at that, 6.5 total. 6.5, they still finished under. Now, this one annoyed me last night, this Padres-Brewers game. So, Brandon Woodruff, who has, I would say quietly, I mean, you've had some guys have really good seasons in the National League. Like Max Scherzer has, and he pitches tonight for the Nationals. He's had a really good season. Brandon Woodruff with the Brewers has been excellent. And he beats the Padres last night. You know Milwaukee's 4-0 against San Diego this year. That the Brewers, for as inconsistent as their lineup is, and they have 2 aces at the top of their staff with Woodruff and Corbin Burns, who pitches tonight, San Diego's going to be in the playoffs. Like, they'll be a wild card. But for some reason, the Padres just can't figure out the Brewers. And it almost feels like that Braves-Rays thing, or Braves and Blue Jays, excuse me, that Toronto beat Atlanta 6 times this year. If Atlanta never sees Toronto again, they'll be fine with it. Just like I think with San Diego. If they never see Milwaukee again after this, they'll be fine with it. Their offense can't do anything against them. There's something up when they play the Brewers. But anyway, so here's what I'm annoyed with. So Milwaukee's up 5-0, cruising along. 5-0 going to the ninth inning on a 7 total. First batter gets walked for San Diego. Then Tommy Pham, the former Cardinal, hits a homer. Push. Just like that. 5-2. Well, push at worse. And then the Brewers, or the Padres rather, get a runner on base. They bring in Josh Hader. Eric Hosmer gets a base hit. Another run scores. 5-3 loser. 5-0 going to the ninth. You need 3 outs. Can't get it. 3 runs come first. And I've always hated the thinking that you can't bring a closer in when it's not a save situation because you got to get that precious save. I hate the save stat. I absolutely hate it. I think it's a waste. I think it's misleading. Why? I mean, you're up 5-0, and people would say, well, you don't need to bring in Josh Hader unless it's a save situation because why waste him? But whoever they brought in just got lit up. And now you're getting into a save situation. Unless, seriously, it's like a 10-1 game or something crazy, I think if you get even below 5, I think you still got to bring in the closer. Just because you don't want things... Look who was up in the ninth inning. Fernando Tatis, Eric Hosmer. You were getting all the guns up for San Diego. So why even take a chance and get this to be a 5-3 or 5-4 game? But anyway, and I had the under. That's why I was talking like that. Tampa Bay has won 11 straight games. They beat Toronto 14-8. And look, Tampa was up 5-0 early in that game. The Blue Jays did a good job of tying it. But this is something, and the game was over the total. Or actually, well, it could have pushed if somebody scored 1 run in extra innings. But this is where I say betting Major League Baseball totals is extremely dangerous right now. Because with this extra innings rule and putting the runner on second automatically, look at that. Tampa Bay scored 9 runs in the 2 extra innings. That was a 5-5 game. It was 14-8 after they finished. That you're getting a lot of these games are getting out of control when you get to extra innings with the runs. Because you get a runner on second, base hit scores a run that easily. Hit a ball up the middle, you get a run. But then you still got to stop the other team, and then you get a couple runs, and then you extend the game. We know the NHL, it's over. When you're going to overtime, you know what the final score is going to be. That if you had a 5.5 total in the NHL, it was a 1-1 game going to overtime, you've won if you have the under. You know it's not going to be 6-5. Now, basketball, it could get a little, like in Memphis Golden State on Friday night, which had no business going over, but they did with overtime. Sure, okay. But baseball, this thing, it's like built-in scoring. That's the difference. You can have a game, before this rule, you could have a game that went 17 innings and no one would score for 8 of those or 6 of those innings. And you get the walk-off in the 17th inning on 1 run. Now, with this runner on second, forget it. It's just blowing up. Toronto's lost 6 straight. Tampa Bay has won 11 straight. So Tampa Bay, they freaking do this every year. Get off to a slow start. They don't really have a lot of names you know. And yet, the defending American League champions, they are right there. And they go on these big runs. And they're back in it. They can, Blake Snell, see ya, go to San Diego, it's fine. Get rid of all these guys over the years. David Price, Matt Garza. Probably a lot of other guys I'm forgetting. Evan Longoria. See you later, it's fine. We're okay. And you know what? In the end, they're okay. They've always been okay. It's a great organization. Crappy stadium, but great organization. Cleveland wins at Detroit 6-5 in a back and forth affair a little bit there. And the Indians, who went on that nice winning streak and they kind of fell back to earth in Detroit off of the walk-off loss to Kansas City on Sunday on the Carlos Santana homer. Now they lose again by a run. I mean, look, Detroit's been a little more competitive of late, but the Indians, I give Terry Francona credit. You know, They Francisco Lindor will turn around eventually, but right now it looks good as far as like they got rid of him. He's hitting like 200, not even, maybe less than 200, and New York gave him all that money. So they don't look that bad. Another annoying total loss last night, Baltimore and Minnesota. Baltimore, as you see, trailed 2-1 going to the 8th on a 9 total. And the Orioles had some really good trends going for them as far as unders in road series openers. John Means on the road had been really good. Of course, he threw the no-hitter against Seattle. But there was a rain delay at Target Field last night in the 8th inning when it was 3-2 Baltimore. It was 3-2 or 2. I think it was when Baltimore was batting in the top of the 8th. So rain delay's over. Baltimore gets 2 in the top of the 8th to go up then 3-2. So you're at 5 runs. You're still in good shape. Minnesota, all of a sudden, they bust out. They score 6 in the bottom of the 8th. So you're looking good on the under, and then all of a sudden it just explodes in the towards the end. So Minnesota and Baltimore have been huge underruns. And the Twins are playing a little better. Twins, after a bad start, playing a little bit better. Seattle wins at Oakland 4-2, so the Mariners bounce back after they had a horrible weekend in San Diego. And you see Kikuchi. He's had some moments this year. He's pitched well. But in Oakland, at times they just so up and down. The White Sox end up beating the Cardinals, Lance Lynn against his former team. 4 runs there in the 6th pretty much does the trick, and that game easily stays under the total. So the Cardinals' bats have cooled off a little bit. They couldn't score a run in the first 9 innings against the Cubs on Sunday night. They got a run in extra innings, lost 2-1. Now they get the White Sox, and they scored just 1 run there in that 5-1 loss. So let's go to tonight's action in Major League Baseball. And a heavy card. The Cubs and Pirates, they start a series up in Pittsburgh, and the Pirates, who were humiliated by the Braves this past weekend, remember they lost one of those games 20-1? They won the opener at Atlanta. They scored 3 runs. They got to score 33-3 in the final 3 games. That's not good. But Chicago has not won back-to-back, or they have not. I think they have not won back-to-back road games this year. It's either they're 1-5. Let me look really fast, but what's the number on them? 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, 0-6. Cubs are 0-6 this season on the road off a road win, so keep that in mind. Phillies and Marlins, and we'll see what Philadelphia. No faith in this team. The Phillies, they have lost 3 straight to the Marlins, and Vince Velasquez goes. It's kind of a short line, it feels like, for him, who he's not great. Sandy Alcantara goes for Miami, and Alcantara, one of the top arms there in that Marlins rotation. But the Marlins, look, they're playing with confidence now. They beat the Mets a few times over the weekend, and understandably the Mets are beat up. But the Phillies, though, some of these teams in the National League East, that's what makes the National League East so frustrating is the Mets went on a run, but then they got hurt. The Nationals now have heated up a little bit of late. Where's been the Phillies run? You know, the Phillies have not had that crazy run this year, it feels like, since the beginning. They started 5-1. They won, 5 straight here. They swept the Brewers, I remember that, and they beat Atlanta. 1-2, 3, 4, 5, 1-5, 2-7 the last 9 for the Phillies. I don't know. I mean, it's just so inconsistent. That's what I feel like a lot of these teams at National League East. You don't know what you're going to get from them every night. The Reds and the Nationals from D.C., and I mentioned earlier about Max Scherzer and how well he's been pitching. He's been great, in fact, for Washington. And he's got an ERA around 2-ish or so. Tyler Mahle goes for Cincinnati, and he was racked in his last start against the Giants at home. And the Reds are actually 4-1 in Mahle's 5 road starts, so something to keep an eye on there. Reds are off that awful homestand. They got swept by the Giants. They lost 2 of 3 to Milwaukee, and Washington just swept Baltimore. But take for that what you will. I mean, the Orioles aren't exactly a playoff team, but Molly has been decent on the road. It's just about Scherzer now, and he's been on fire. Jacob deGrom, he is on the mound tonight for the Mets. Look at that price lane, $250 against Colorado. And yes, the Rockies are the worst road team in baseball, but we know how dominant Jacob deGrom is, but it's the injury that is concerning. That you don't want to be taking the Mets tonight, or even the Mets minus 1.5, and then deGrom has got this oblique, side situation that flares up. And you could say that about any pitcher. Anybody can get hurt anytime. But deGrom has had this thing that you feel like has been a sticking point for him. He's one of the best in baseball. No disputing it. But the Mets lineup right now is not very good. And looking back at last night's game against the Rockies, in which the Mets had 4 hits. Now, Colorado, again, not really good offensively. But that's not a good lineup. I'm just looking at it now. Francisco Lindor is batting 189, and everyone says, oh, he's going to turn it around. He's going to turn it around. He's not turning it around. He's been terrible for the Mets this season. But even that, Dominic Smith is batting cleanup. Pete Alonso's out. I mean, the Mets they're just a disaster, but it's not their fault. I mean, their guys are hurt. It's one thing to be like, oh, well, these guys are struggling. Past Lindor, I mean, he's been the worst of all of them. But then you have, the Mets have all these players right now that are injured. And Alonso, Conforto, McNeil, all hurt. And it doesn't help that deGrom was hurt. Syndergaard's still not pitching. Carlos Carrasco's not pitching. So it's kind of amazing. I guess in a sense it's amazing that the Mets right now are barely hanging on to first place in the National League East at 21-20. I want to show you something really fast. This is astounding. I want to go to the standings really fast before we continue. I want you to look at this. Look at this National League East. Okay. The Mets are 21-20. They're the only team above 500 in this division. The Braves are 1 back. The Marlins are 1 back. The Phillies are 1 back. The Nationals are 2 back. So it's a very competitive division, but one team has a winning record in it. 1. And they are missing like half their team. So what's that saying about the Phillies, the Braves? Look at that. The Braves have won 3 straight. The Marlins have won 3 straight. The Nationals have won 3 straight. And the Mets have lost 3 in a row. That's why this race has gotten as tight as it has. But when you look at the other races, Pirates in last place, 7 back. Diamondbacks, 12 back. Orioles, 12 back. Tigers and Twins, 9. Angels, 7. National League East, it's great from a competitive standpoint, but nobody can break away. Mets go on that run, and all of a sudden now they've fallen apart and everyone else is coming back. Anyway, San Diego, Milwaukee from American Family Field, formerly known as Miller Park. Corbin Burns, who, you look at his last 3 starts, the Brewers were 0-3 in his last 3 starts. And he shut down the Padres last time he faced them at Petco Park, struck out 10 last month in that sweep that Milwaukee had of San Diego on the road. Joe Musgrove in one of those games struck out 13. And Musgrove was laying 160. Now he's a short underdog against Corbin Burns. And San Diego's trying to break through against Milwaukee. They're 0-4 against them this year. San Francisco and Arizona, Kevin Gausman, he's got an ERA under 2. He has been one of the best stories in baseball this year. That Kevin Gausman was the opening day starter for the San Francisco Giants. And you're wondering, why is this guy starting? He's been their ace. Johnny Cueto pitched well at the beginning, then got hurt, but Kevin Gausman's been fantastic for them. But here's the problem. The Giants, who were flying high after they swept Cincinnati on the road, they go home and the Dodgers punch them right in the face. Beat them 3 times. First meeting this season between the Dodgers and the Giants, and LA took all 3 from San Francisco. San Diego sits alone atop the NL West. Dodgers are a half game back. San Francisco's a game and a half back. So the Giants, for as well as they've been playing, it was just a matter of time before you woke up the Dodgers and you woke up San Diego. And San Diego, in spite of the loss to the Brewers last night, they've still been on fire. But the Diamondbacks, they had an awful road trip. They lost each game in LA. They got swept at Colorado. Now they head home to face San Francisco. I do like the Diamondbacks tonight, for as crazy as that sounds. I mean, Kevin Gausman laying that is a little bit high. Blue Jays and Yankees in the American League. Corey Kluber first start off the no-hitter. And Kluber, that's a great comeback story. He pitched the one game for Texas last year. Got hurt. Didn't return to the Rangers. Of course, who is he no-hit this year? The Rangers. And the Yankees, they're playing extremely well after the slow start. They're only a game out of first place because Tampa Bay's won 11 straight games. And Boston's still wedged in between them, but the Yankees now 28-19. Yankees were, 5-10? 23-9 the last 32 games for the Yankees. So Kluber's a heavy favorite here against Steven Matz. Blue Jays are 4-1 in Matz's 5 road starts. And Toronto off that terrible homestand against Boston and Tampa Bay. I mean, now you get the Yankees. That's no prize. But Toronto's 4-2 against New York this year. Take it for what it's worth. Cleveland at Detroit. Aaron Savali, nice favorite there. And the Indians, who beat the Tigers last night. I don't know how much I trust them tonight in the favorite role. Kansas City and Tampa Bay at the Trop. And the Rays, 11 consecutive wins. They beat Kansas City 2 of 3 at Kauffman Stadium. Brad Keller, who is coming off back-to-back underdog wins against the White Sox and the Brewers, his last 2 times out. He opposes Rich Hill, who has pitched well over the last few starts for Tampa Bay. But last time they played in Kansas City, the second game of that series, the Rays beat the Royals 14-7. The starting pitchers that night, Brad Keller and Rich Hill. Tampa Bay closed laying 110. They're laying almost 200 tonight. Look, the Royals they went through that 11-game losing streak, and they came back. I think they split 4 with Chicago. They beat Milwaukee twice. They did lose 2 of 3 to Detroit, but they had the walk-off home run Sunday, so they're playing a little more confidence. But man, that seems heavy. It really does. And Brad Keller is more miss than hit, but there have been times as a road dog the last few years he's put up some fantastic performances. Baltimore's at Minnesota, and the Twins have Jose Barrios on the mound tonight. Dean Kramer goes for the Orioles. This was like a pick'em last night. Now all of a sudden Minnesota, who, look, they're digging their way out. They were a few days ago. Minnesota. Let's go back for a second. Minnesota's won 4 of 5 after they had a huge. They were terrible. They had the worst record in baseball for a while. But here's the key with Minnesota too. They're 10-1 of the over their last 11 games. That totals 9.5 tonight. And Jose Barrios, he's got an ERA below 4. He's on a 4-0 over streak. And this year, just to put this out there, in the 2 starts Jose Barrios has made as a $2 favorite or higher, they beat Seattle 10-2 and beat Kansas City 13-4. So they've taken care of their business there. And Baltimore, who, look, like Pittsburgh, like some of these other teams, like Texas, who got off to somewhat decent starts considering they had low expectations. Yeah, they're kind of in the crapper right now. Rangers and Angels, some of the late night action out west in Anaheim. And Andrew Heaney, just waiting to see him get back on track. Andrew Heaney is actually, he's been a decent pitcher for the Angels. But what you wonder is, when's he going to get it back on track? His last start against Cleveland gave up 5 runs. He's given up 5 runs in back-to-back starts. and the Angels are 0-5 in his last 5 outings. He's got an ERA of 5.31. I mean, he's better than that. And I don't know what the issue is there, but Haney this year has not faced Texas. And Haney, too, is on a 6-0 overrun. So that's something to maybe look at. Total of 8.5 there out in Anaheim. And Texas. So Texas loses 3 or 4 to the Yankees. They sweep Houston. And they got really good pitching performances in some of those games. See, again, it's misleading final scores because the Rangers beat the Astros on Friday 7-5. Kyle Gibson pitched well, but guess what the score was? That was a 4-4 game going to extras, and Texas hits a walk-off homer to win it. Houston took the lead in the top of the 10th of that game. So Houston swept Texas at home. Texas swept Houston at home. And now the Rangers are back on the road. The Angels avoided a sweep by beating the A's on Sunday, but LA's still a mess right now without Mike Trout. Seattle and Oakland, the second game of that series, and Seattle stole game 1 last night. When I say stole, I mean I don't want to make it to be like they didn't deserve to win because they played well, but they got the win last night that ended a 6-game losing streak after they were swept by Detroit and San Diego, and they were awful in that San Diego series. The Padres destroyed them. But Oakland now has lost 2 straight, and Cole Irvin goes to the mound. Cole Irvin's very interesting because when you look at what he's done on the season, the Athletics are 0-5 in his 5 starts as an underdog. As a favorite, they are 3-1. And this is going to be the highest price that Cole Irvin is laying this season. But in all 3 of the wins that he has, they've won on the run line. 7-0, 3-1, and 4-1. So if you're not comfortable taking the run line, maybe take the under in that game, Seattle and Oakland. But he, at home, 3-1 to the under his last 4. All right, the interleague games. Atlanta. Hang on, stop. Let's fix this again. All right, the interleague games. Atlanta and Boston. And Charlie Morton, who's been kind of trashy this year for the Braves. He pitched well his last start against the Mets. He's a short favorite. They've been actually good on the road, Atlanta, of late. Short favorite against Garrett Richards, who pitched well in his last start at home against Oakland, but before that he was lit up in his 2 starts at Fenway. And Atlanta off the big weekend against Pittsburgh. Now let's see what they do here where they played very well on the road. They took 2 of 3 at Milwaukee. They had a sweep of Washington. They played well on the road. Dodgers and Astros, this is going to be a really good matchup in Houston. World Series rematch from a few years ago, all the cheating that the Astros did. Not alleged cheating, but the cheating. We know it happened. A couple former Cy Young winners on the mound, Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke, and the Dodgers a short favorite there. In Houston could be worth a look. But the Dodgers, though, after that big sweep of San Francisco, LA is back on track, and it's really amazing how long a baseball season is because the LA Dodgers, the defending world champions, had that losing stretch in which they went, let me just get the number, 1-3, 4, 5, 6, 2-6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They went 2-10, 3-10, we'll call it 3-11. They went 3-11 over a 14-game stretch. Since then, they're 11-1. 11-1 in the last 12. Only loss coming by a runs in the Marlins. Swept San Francisco, swept Arizona, swept Seattle. And look, they've come back to life, the Dodgers, to what we know that what they are. And Clayton Kershaw, during this stretch, he's got a 3.18 ERA, at least on the season. Kershaw, I mean, let's see, his road numbers. He doesn't have a lot of. He's had a lot more home starts than. Well, let me see. 0-1 or 1-1, 2-1. I mean, he hasn't been bad. He had that one terrible start against the Cubs. That was the one that he really was awful. He gave up the 4 runs in the 1 inning of work. Now, meanwhile, for Houston, for Zach Greinke, he pitched really well his last time out against Oakland, went 8 innings, struck out 8. And the Astros are on a 6-game over streak when Zach Greinke starts. They're 5-1, or excuse me, 6-1 his last 7 starts. Only loss coming to the Yankees, and they have won his last 4 home starts. So take what you will with the Astros. And the final game of the night, the Cardinals and the White Sox from Chicago. The Cardinals are 9-0 in Jack Flaherty's 9 starts this season. And he's an underdog here against Lucas Giolito. White Sox are 0-4 in Giolito's 4 home starts. White Sox on a 5-game under streak, and St. Louis on a 3-game under streak. They've scored 4 runs the last 3 games, the Cardinals. So you wonder what they'll do here against Lucas Giolito. White Sox won that opener last night 5-1. Let's take a look now at the NHL and where we sit with the playoffs. You only got 2 games tonight. We'll get to that in just a second. Panthers beat the Lightning last night 4-1. Spencer Knight, the rookie goalie, comes in since their goaltending was terrible. Sergei Bobrovsky had an awful game. Chris Driedger had an awful game. And head coach Joe Quenneville's like, screw it. We're going Spencer Knight. And he gave up a goal less than a minute in. He didn't give up a goal the rest of the game. He had like 30-something saves. He was fantastic. So now that series going back to Tampa on Wednesday. And Lightning have another shot to finish off the Panthers. We'll see how that one goes. Islanders in 2 overtimes. They beat Pittsburgh last night 3-2. So now New York is on the verge of eliminating Pittsburgh. Boston's waiting in the wings. The Bruins knocked out the Capitals in 5 games. So New York, they got a third period goal to tie it. They win in 2 overtimes. And the Islanders so far have beaten the Penguins twice in overtime in the series. And they're up 3-2. And the Cash is a plus 125 underdog. Toronto bounced back nicely after they lost the opener to Montreal. They've won 2 in a row. They didn't get the puck line win, but they win 2-1 last night. And assuming Toronto gets out of that series, they would be facing the Winnipeg Jets. Took them 3 overtimes to beat Edmonton 4-3. So Edmonton, who blew the 4-1 lead in Game 3, losing 3 overtimes last night, they're out. And the Oilers with Connor McDavid, the best player in the world. Last 2 years, first round. See you later. And Winnipeg advances. So they'll be sitting and waiting for the winner of Toronto-Montreal, who we think is going to be Toronto. Colorado is waiting after they swept St. Louis. And looks like they'll be waiting a little longer because Minnesota jumped out to a early lead at Vegas. They scored 3 in the first, and they beat the Golden Knights 4-2. So the Wild plus 165. It's a nice hit there. And they have game number 6 back in Minnesota coming up tomorrow night. And let's look at this tonight's card. Nashville and Carolina. Carolina was up 2-0. Nashville won the last 2 in double overtime, in fact, at Bridgestone Arena. So now Carolina's a heavy favorite there for game number 5. 5.5. I mean, all these games are going to be 5.5 totals. So, I mean, Panthers, Lightning tomorrow is 6. Toronto, Montreal, they play again tonight after last night because, remember, the North was a little behind due to the COVID stuff and them making up games. So Edmonton and Winnipeg played a back-to-back. Toronto, Montreal played a back-to-back. And the Maple Leafs can go up 3-1 and really put the hammer down on the Canadiens and get set for Winnipeg in the next round. Then you got 3 games coming up tomorrow night, and we're getting close to the end of the first round in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So, don't forget, you can purchase NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball selections from our handicappers at VegasInsider.com. $29.95 for daily picks, and you see the choices you have from the handicappers. Also, the guaranteed pick, which is a pay after it wins. $39.95. If it's a winner, you pay, but also you won. If it's a loser, you pay nothing. Simple as that. And that's the best play of the day. It's only one play. So the guaranteed picks, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, they are all up today on VegasInsider.com. Just go to the Buy Picks page under NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. And again, we'll remind you about the Daily Insider, the contest that we have, the Daily Insider contest. Leave your comments below the video, and what you do is, in the comment section, I should say, I mean, you leave other comments, that's fine too, but you leave your Vegas Insider user ID along with the best bet for tonight, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, first half, first quarter, first 5 innings, player prop, it doesn't matter, just before the game. It can't be a live bet. And you will be in the drawing to win a week's worth of one handicapper selections on VegasInsider.com. It's a $100 value. So make sure you have your user ID underneath so we can get in contact with you. If you don't have a user ID from Vegas Insider, go to the big yellow register button in the top right corner. Click on that. Free membership. Register now. ID, password, you create it. Email address, the one you have. First and last name, phone number, birthday, so we know you're legal, and you'll be all set. That's so we get in contact with you. That's pretty much why we ask those questions. So, again, we appreciate you tuning in to the Daily Insider here on this Tuesday, May 25th, and we'll be back with you tomorrow again at noon Eastern. I am Kevin Rogers, and as always, best of luck with your bets.